What's up, you fish freaks? Welcome to the podcast, episode number 55 of the KFO show, brought to you by the Wendell Fishing YouTube channel. Yes, don't have a sponsor, so still just promoting myself over here. But I just hit over 1,000 videos posted. Took 3 years to do it. It's been a lot of fun. I'm enjoying the camaraderie of everybody out there. But I throw out daily shorts, daily community posts, weekly podcasts, and at least one weekly video. Sometimes I get two out, especially in like when the summer hits and there's just a lot going on, a lot of fishing going on. And so if you have not yet headed over to @Wendell Fishing on YouTube, love to see you over there. Is where I primarily spend the majority of my time. However, I am over at Facebook every once in a while, and I just started a public group called Kayak Fishing Freaks. And just about a month ago started this bad boy. We're already at 303 members. So it's been a lot of fun, a lot of posts in there. Love for you to join that. If here, let me do this. For those of you listening in live, I'm just going to throw that link. Boom. There you go, folks. You can go over there and go ahead. You are invited to the community. Should be fun. All right. Well, remember, for those of you joining us in live, if you're on like Instagram or Facebook, head over to the YouTube channel. That's where a lot of the conversations take place. And remember, this is an interactive podcast. So want you to ask your questions. I'll try to get them answered. If you got a question for me, if you got a question for my guest, I will do my best to try to star them. And we'll circle back to those if we're in the middle of a conversation. Of course, I always love watching like just sidebar conversations take place among everybody listening in. So that is awesome. But now that's all out of the way, I'd like to welcome my guest tonight, Charlie, also known as Slyfox Fishing, my man. How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing good. You know what? I just got to spending the last couple hours. My brother came over. He's like uber smart. And so I bought this the Newport Vessels battery box for, I recently got an NK180 motor for my Bonafide P127. And the Newport Vessels battery box is a 12-volt battery box. And so you have to do some modifications to it, put a step down in there. So you can still use the battery charger and still use all the other charging ports. You have to put a converter in there. And so we were working on that and didn't get it all done, but I'm really close. That video should coming out because the battery that runs the NK180 is a 24-volt system, and there's not a lot of options out there when it comes to battery boxes for 24-volt batteries. So coming soon, folks. But that's what I've been working on. What have you been doing in this? This is the stuff that we work on up here in Ohio whenever it's too cold to fish. What are you doing when it's too cold to fish?
Oh, well, watching videos. My wife complains about it. Not a whole lot. Spending time with the family, stuff like that. Because, summertime, you miss a lot with the family. So,
especially you were cruising on catching bass for the knucklehead, like all the time.
Oh, well, thanks. I mean, I appreciate my wife for letting me get out and go fishing. It puts a lot more on her plate when I'm out there doing it. I've done a lot of fishing at night, and we went out for our anniversary in July.
Yeah.
And after we went out, ate dinner, chilled out for a little bit, at the house with her. And I'm like, I got to go fishing. She's like, go ahead.
Like, what do you mean at night? Like into the dark?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is it in July? It's hot.
Oh, yeah.
During the day, you're looking at 95-degree temperatures during the day, and I'd go out there and I'd start fishing just before dark. Sometimes I'd fish up to just, 9, 10 o'clock at night, just when it was, getting dark. And sometimes I'd be there to 3:30 in the morning.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. So a lot of us don't get out there and fish in the middle of the night. So you have to be on them in order to do that. So how are you fishing in the middle of the night and still slaying them?
Well, one place I was fishing at, it's a reservoir off of a little town, little city. And there's a hospital right on the north end of it. So there's a bunch of light. So that gives you a good bit of light on the north end. Now, when you get to the south end, it's a little bit more difficult. So I'd, wear a headlamp on my head when I, to get down next to the water on the rocks and all that stuff. Then, to keep the bugs at bay, I'd turn the light off and start casting. You know, I mean, you just got to know where the water is and go for it. And use your darker your darker spinner baits at night. Things like that. You know, I mean, that's just what I did.
Hey, I rarely fish at night or in the evening just because I'm going to bed when you are going fishing. One, I just get up early, like at the butt crack of dawn, and that's when I'm out there on the water. But
Yeah,
it's all good. Yeah, Southwest Indian Outdoors has a comment here. Shout out to awesome wives. Heck
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Or spouses, if you like going out and your husband's staying home, whatever it is. They allow us to really do what we love to do by kind of just taking care of everything that we leave to go fishing. So my wife's upstairs listening in right now. Danielle, thank you. I love you. I appreciate that. So shout out to awesome spouses for sure. Tonight we're going to be talking about spinnerbaits, and more spinnerbaits. So this might be the most like in-depth conversation I've had on a singular type of lure since I started the show 54 episodes ago. So I'm looking forward to it because it is my least favorite way to fish. And maybe after today, Charlie, you could change my mind or give me a little bit more hope of just changing it up or knowing when to pull that bad boy out, throw it, different retrieve. So we'll get in there a little bit, but this is Kayak Fishing Obsessed. So first you got to share, one, how'd you get into this? How long ago? And two, tell us about your kayak rig.
Well, I got into fishing as further back than I can remember. My dad, was big into fishing and hunting and stuff, and that's what I done as a kid. I got into bass fishing. Oh, I was probably about 12 years old.
Okay.
Just from watching, all the Bassmasters and watching Bill Dance and Roland Martin and Jimmy Houston, all them. And if they're all big spinnerbait fishing guys. They're the old timers that really, took the fishing to where it is today, I believe. They're the goats, and I like I said, about 12 years old, got into bass fishing stuff, and I tried all kinds of things, just from worms and crankbaits, topwaters, jigs. Jigs was like pretty good. I've done pretty good with them.
And fallen in love with the jig recently. So
I love jigs. But then it kind of turned in where I started using spinnerbaits. Because I think, well, I see all these guys on TV using these spinnerbaits and they're catching these huge bass. So I started buying spinnerbaits, and spinnerbaits has been an obsession.
Oh, an obsession! Whoa!
Yeah, they are an obsession.
I didn't realize you were like spinnerbait obsessed over here.
Yes, I mean when I went through my stuff earlier, and I realized I didn't have any booyah spinnerbaits. I got in my gut. I'm like, I don't have any booyahs.
You're not gonna be able to sleep tonight, are you? Until you buy a 5-pack.
Yeah, it bugs me. And they're expensive. They're not a cheap spinnerbait.
Okay.
Then I was actually, believe it or not, my PB wasn't caught on a spinnerbait.
Oh, what was it on?
It was on a hula popper, topwater bait.
Oh, what was it?
The old hula popper years ago. It was a black and white hula popper.
Okay.
A little black skirt on, rubber. I had little rubber skirts on. I had and not a treble hook. They had the double hook.
Yep.
And that one was, I'm saying it was like 10 pounds, 13 ounces because it was in between.
Whoa.
Yeah.
The donkey.
I was 14 years old.
Where were you at? Not in
down
Ohio.
In Mississippi.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Down in North Mississippi where I was raised up at.
Okay.
And it was in a farm pond, but I'd never caught a bass that big out of there ever. I mean, the biggest bass I caught there maybe 1.5 pounds. And I'd caught hundreds of them out of there. And just one morning real early, me and my dad got there at like daylight. This was maybe a half hour after daylight.
Yeah.
I'm popping that hula popper,
Oh, gosh.
and just the biggest blow up in my life. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know what it was. I'm
What'd
like,
your
this
dad
can't be
do?
a bass. and I got it in after probably like a 3 or 4 minute fight. I mean, it was just going.
Wow.
And I got it in, and I ran like 2/3 of the way around this pond. It's probably about a 4-acre pond.
Okay.
And I run all the way around that thing, showed it to my dad, I had an old Bass Pro Shops, just the old scale, had the little dial on it.
Oh, yeah.
And it was in between 10 3/4 and 10 7/8
Okay.
of a pound. And
Jeez.
yeah. So it was like, it's got to be like 13, 10 pounds, 13 ounces. I'm sitting there looking at this huge bass. I mean, this thing was like this big around.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad looked at me. He's like, boy, what are you going to do with that? You going to kiss it? You going to get it mounted? You going to throw it back? And I'd always said if I ever caught a 10 pounder or bigger, I'd get it mounted.
Get it mounted, right.
And I'm sitting there looking at it. And I give it to old Jimmy Houston, and I put her back in the water and let her swim off. My dad instantly freaked out. Because my dad would have ate that fish.
Oh, that big?
Yeah, he didn't care. He got mad. He started reeling all of his stuff. He fished with live bait.
Okay.
Or worms or chicken livers or shrimp, things like that, crawdads. He wasn't into lure fishing. And he got mad at me. Just went through all the stuff to the bed of the truck, and he's like, if you're going home, you better come on, boy. We're like 40 miles from home. Well, of course, 14 years old, I got to ride with my dad.
I mean, I could fish the rest of the night, and Mom will come get me later. I mean, we could do that. Oh, it's a bummer.
So we went home, and I mean, he was so mad. He didn't even go fishing for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, he was upset.
That's pretty mad.
But he got over it, and he's like, well, I guess I understand. I'm like, well, Dad, she was just too big to harm her.
Right. You gotta
back then you didn't get replicas made. You had to take the fish to the taxidermist.
Right.
They used the fish to mount with. And which I'm glad they've since progressed in taxidermy, where you can just take photos real good and take a bunch of measurements.
Oh yeah.
And they can give you a replica.
Yeah. They got lunker share and everything out there to keep
those
big girls out there for other people to catch. And well, that's awesome. So you got your PB when you were 12, and you've never been able to come 14.
Yeah. I'm 47 years old. I'll be 48 this year. I've been chasing it forever, and in Ohio, I'll never beat it.
No, you got to go back down south, and even then, that's still a donkey. Jeez.
And that's the reason, going down to Guntersville, I was hoping just maybe, I could catch an 11-pounder. And it didn't work out that way, but they're there.
Yeah, they're there. It's pretty stingy that weekend. There wasn't a lot of monster bass, right?
No, I mean, you and Daniel Pierce, you guys killed it with the 22 inchers.
Yeah. But there's a lot bigger in there, obviously. But there's a lot of people throwing.
I think their record is like 14 pounds, 6 ounces on Guntersville.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the late record, or 14 pounds something.
So when you were down at Guntersville is where we actually met face to face, by the way. That was fantastic. If you're listening in on the podcast, you're like, what? Guntersville is part of the Knucklehead tournament. I know a lot of you guys listening in are familiar with it. If you're not, we're going to be doing it again this year. And so it's basically a 4-month online tournament, and then you win a spot on one of your favorite content creators teams. And then we'll be heading down to Lake Guntersville to fish off against other teams. And it's top. Basically, you have a team of 5, and everyone gets their biggest bass, and you basically bring those together and try to beat all the other teams. And so that was a blast this year, and look forward to next year. Were you fishing the spinnerbait down in Guntersville?
I did use the spinnerbait some. I caught a couple little 6-8 inch bass off of it.
Oh, okay.
And then I switched to a jackhammer, and I caught some more little 6-8 inch bass and a white bass, and then hooked into a chain pickerel. And my tournament day was not going good at all. I was so mad. And but I thought I had a huge one, and here it was like a 13, 14 inch chain pickerel fighting like God knows what, and I thought I actually had a real nice bass. I'm like, oh man, I got an 18, 20 incher probably. if not bigger.
Oh yeah.
And then it come up, up beside the kayak, and I seen it, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I just give it slack. I'm like, I don't want to get all slimy and nasty,
It's not rockets, what they
So
call
I give it
guys.
slack out, and it got about 10, 15 foot off the side of the kayak. I locked the reel, and I just started jiggling, just trying to help it get broke loose. And it's just sitting there on top of the water, not even moving. I'm like, come on. I'm jiggling. After about 30 seconds, it blew up out of the water. I took a jackhammer to the side of the head.
Oh, he spit that in your face.
Yeah, that hurt.
He went home and told his buddies about that one.
Oh, yeah, that hurt. And on tournament day down there, I moved places from where I was at. I was at Goose Pond, and I went from Goose Pond over to Honeycomb.
Okay.
Right over by the Honeycomb campground on that ramp. And I don't know, I held up there. I was waiting for one of my teammates to get there, and I was within maybe 300 feet of the ramp. And I was running, Alabama rig.
Okay.
Running the A rig. Just as he was getting ready to put it in the water, bam! I mean, I think I caught like either a 13 or a quarter or 13 and 3/4, and that was the only keeper that I caught that day.
Really?
Yes,
13 and 1/4.
Only one.
Oh. So, how about pre-fishing?
Pre-fishing, I caught a 14.5 was my biggest.
It's like Ohio fishing.
Yeah, I mean, it was like devastating to me. I had high expectations, and I used techniques that I'd used for years down south, with crankbaits and wacky rig jigs, lipless cranks. I mean, topwater, frogs, just all kinds of stuff. I was throwing on practice day, and it was like nothing was working.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of guys that are just having trouble. Either you were on them or you weren't, it seemed
exactly.
Like. Yeah.
And the people that were on them, that's like your team, and Gramps' team. You guys got there and you guys killed it.
I mean, Gramps and I were like a mile away from each other. So it might have been this area. Like who knows?
One area and one other area. I know the dock where you caught your 22-inch.
You don't know nothing. Nothing.
Oh yeah, I know that dock because Garrett Wade caught a fish right there, the same one. I know.
2 weeks before.
I watched his video and I was watching his and then watching your shorts. I'm like,
I know that
same daggum dock. So I pulled it up on a map and looked. I'm like, oh yeah, I know where it is.
Oh, I'm gonna have like 70 kayaks next to me next year. That's what I'm feeling is gonna happen. Frickety frack. Stupid YouTube.
That won't happen.
Oh yeah, it won't happen. Mm-hmm. Let's get into spinnerbait questions here. I got a lot of comments over here. Let's see. Trevor Wagner says, "Hey, my personal best came off a spinnerbait. What was that personal best, Trevor? Want to hear it." Cliffhanger said, "Absolutely. My wife will say you're getting grumpy. When do you want to go fishing this week?" That's like training bad behavior, in my opinion, right?
My wife does the same thing.
Yeah, it just makes me want to be grumpy all the time. If the response I get from my wife is, "Yeah, go fishing," so I'm not sure how that works. Del Patton says, "Hey, I'm glad I'm not the only one obsessed. This is good." All right, let's hop in some spinnerbait questions here. First, let's talk about, there's all kinds of different ways to retrieve a spinnerbait, right? You got your simple cast, your wind, you could wake it right below the water.
You bring it just under the surface where you got a little turbulence.
Yep. So you can do it that way. You got a slow roll. You can drag it. You can yo-yo it. You can jig them. You can kind of walk it down, kind of like walk the stairs down, down an incline. There's so many different ways. What have you found to be successful for you?
It kind of depends on the time of the year.
Yeah. Walk us through. Walk us through.
In the springtime, when water's just, getting around 55 degrees, maybe even as low as 50, when bats are starting to get a little more active, they're going to start feeding a little more because the water temperatures is slowly warming up to get prepared for the spawn. They're going to move up shallow. So if you got somewhere that, you got a little bit of structure, rocks, boulders, treetops that are just kind of laying down in the water, they're just, maybe just barely touching the water, fish around those, cast out there. When it hits the water, just go like 1, 2, 3, start reeling. Do it like a medium retrieve. If you got like a 6.5 to 7.0 reel, that a medium retrieve works pretty good. And you're going to get a strike most of the time. Sometimes you might have to just cast it out and just kind of burn it just under the surface. Kind of like there's bait fish up there, moving around. And just where every once in a while, maybe your blade pops out of the water and it gives you slack. And when it does that, it makes that bait just kind of drop and just keep continuously retrieving. And you'll do real good. As it gets a little warmer, just before they spawn, and you get about 58-degree water, don't be afraid to burn it a lot around structure. Cast into that structure, and as soon as you hit the water, start reeling.
Okay.
Because they're going to think something just smacked the water and trying to get out of there. I use, in the springtime, I'll use a Colorado blade a lot. I'll use a gold Colorado blade a lot.
Okay.
No matter what the water clarity is, no matter what the sun is doing. I'm not a conventional spinnerbait fisherman. They're like, wait a minute. If you're telling me if we got, bluebird skies.
Yeah, they're saying go silver willow blades or,
yeah,
flashy. You're going gold.
I don't always do that. I'll go the gold, and it works. I found out that a gold blade on a bluebird sky at about 58-degree water, casting into junk and start reeling it just under the surface, you're going to get a lot of strikes.
All right. Everyone grab your pen and paper, because that was pretty specific. So
that one will produce. It has produced for me for probably over 30 years.
Wow.
I'll yo-yo a spinnerbait.
So walk us through yo-yo for those who are like, okay, hearing
well, when you cast out there, if you're like, say you're on a kind of a ledge that runs down, and if you're in a kayak, get out away from that ledge and cast to the top of that ledge. Bring it out there, let it sink down the bottom. That's the first thing. Say you're 3 foot of water, a little small flat that might be 3 foot deep, and then it drops off. Just start reeling it in, and you kind of, if you have an idea about where that ledge drops off, just kind of pop it and just let it flutter down, and then pop it again, let it flutter down. Give it a few seconds every time, because if a bass is down there on the edge of that ledge, and their bass feed up almost always. That's what they're keen on, is feeding up. And they're going to see that, and it's going to get their attention. They're going to go, oh, what's this? And they're going to go investigate.
Yep.
And, at that point, when you're fishing something like that, I like to use like the larger willow blades. This one's not real big. It's probably 2 1/4 inches.
Okay.
It's a chrome willow blade.
I got one. I think it's KVD. These things are pretty big.
Yeah, here's a Berkeley here with that long shank hook.
There you go.
And it's got a gold and a silver. That'll work good on ledges like that, just popping it, because it gives them a little bit of flash, not a whole lot of sound, but it gives them the flash. And if you get, one with a silver and a gold blade, even though it kind of goes contrary with what a lot of people say in the springtime when the waters are just warming up, because they're like, oh, I'll go with a red or orange blade, but it's the contrast in the color. I believe they just see a different thing there, that's flickering two different colors in the water, they're thinking, okay, it's, some kind of shad or something.
Yeah,
And,
so there's commotions happening.
Yeah.
They're running, something else is hitting them. It's
Yep. It's dying because you're sitting there popping it, and something's done hit it, and they're like, well, that's easy bait for me to go hit and
right.
eat because it's already dying because it's fluttering up and falling down.
Yeah.
Do
you ever find it whenever like you first throw your spinnerbait in the water, when you let that fall, like say you would a wacky worm or something, and just let it go for 3 or 4 seconds? Do you ever see them hit it because of the flutter? Do they hit it on that fall? Does it happen often? Or are we talking like, hey, every once in a while?
Maybe 1 out of like 30 cast.
Okay. So just be ready for it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, be ready for it. I mean, there's times, like if I'm reeling one in, reeling a spinnerbait in, and I get like, okay, I'm 30 feet from structure, and I start burning it in right on the surface. And then when you stop and you go to lift it, and I've had bass come out of the water and snatch them up out of the water.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's like, oh, 9 times out of 10, you'll lose that fish because you only have a couple feet of line out from your rod and you can't fight them.
Right.
And it sucks, but at least it's there. And sometimes it'll make me change what I was doing, previous to that. I might back up a little bit and just cast it out towards the trees or whatever, the underground stumps or logs or whatever's in the water, and just start burning it in.
Okay.
And 9 times out of 10, you done backed up 20 feet from where you had that fish pop out at you. And next thing you know, smash.
Got it.
And then you have him, So
you work this up to like 50-degree temperature water. Keep us going. Like, how are you changing your spinnerbait techniques as the water actually gets even warmer?
Well, when it gets up, in the spawning, that's when they get difficult. That's
in general, not just for the spinnerbait, just in general, they get a little difficult.
Yeah, it gets when they're spawning, it gets tough. When you start seeing bass making beds and everything, and they're trying to get a female to them and everything, that's when I'll grab a spinnerbait like this in here, no skirt, got a little paddle tail on there.
Is that an EXO paddle tail?
Just a paddle tail. This in here, I think this was can't remember who made it now, but it's like a Tennessee shad color.
Okay.
And but it's got a gold blade and an orange blade. Both of them are Colorado.
Neon orange.
Yeah, got the orange. Well, and I'll take that and I'll burn it if I can see them making beds.
Yeah.
And I'll burn it through there. And just keep burning it through there. They're going to get mad and aggravated you coming through there and disturbing them.
Right.
And I think, with something like that, they're thinking, okay, this is some kind of bluegill. Especially like, Tennessee shad's got kind of a little greenish color in it.
Uh-huh.
And then you got that orange because your bluegill's got, orange on them. Majority of them will. Burn that thing through there. And it might take you 40 casts to catch a 1 pound bass.
Better than a no pound bass.
I don't mind catching 1 pound bass.
Hey, in
Ohio, you can't catch them all if you don't catch them small.
No, in Ohio, we fish for 1 pounder, 2 pounders all the time.
Oh,
that's classic. That's just what we produce here.
But I'll burn that, when, like I said, you get out that spawning stage and just burn, spinnerbait like that through there. If you can't find that working, put a crayfish type soft plastic on there. And then when you do that you go back to that, that's kind of either a slow roll where you're dragging right through there where they're making the bed at and making them mad, or just kind of hop it, just hop it up, reel your slack, let it sit there a second, hop it up, reel your slack, let it sit there a second. You're going to make them mad because they don't want nothing in there.
Operation pissed them off.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, keep walking us through. You're at spawn. So what are you looking at post spawn and into the fall?
You get into post spawn. You know, you got your male is going to be guarding the krill. You know, because that's, you know, basically post spawn. They're right there guarding those babies, you know, for a couple weeks there most of the time. And that female, she's going to be out here for about a week or so. You know, she's going to be out here a few feet away from them in case that male has to run off. She'll move in. And I'll just sit there, and I guess it depends on what the main forage is for them.
Yeah.
If you got shad, run a shad color. If you have the old Asian carp in your area, find you something that's like silver all the way. I mean, as much silver glitter spinnerbait you can find, because an Asian carp will feed on them, believe it or not. Not just the eggs, but they'll actually come up and they'll suck those babies right in their mouth.
Okay.
I've seen it happen. It's like, well, that's the craziest thing. I didn't know they'd eat live bait like that, but they will. And just burn something like that through there. You know, there's times I've, you know, catch the male, you know, kind of like, all right, bud, sorry, but you're going to sit over here for a few minutes, you know, and I'm going to cast back in there and get the female.
Right.
You know, a lot of people say, well, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. Well, no, it's no different than if I catch her first, you know, because if I catch her first, I'm going to hold her out and catch him, you know.
There you go.
I mean, you're not going to harm them. I'm not going to sit there and, you know, keep the fish out of the water for 5-10 minutes. You know, I'm going to cast 2-3 times, you know, and usually you'll catch her within the first 2-3 casts.
Okay.
You know, and if you don't, then I'll put him back in the water and there you go. You're good to go. And just try to entice her some more, even with him in the water. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Just depends on how hungry she is.
That's fishing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Exactly. You know, I mean, not everything's a guarantee. You know, I mean, I could tell everybody everything I know about them tonight, and everybody go out and try it, and maybe only one person finds this to work, one person finds that to work. You know, bass are opportunist eaters.
Yep.
You know, they love to, you know, they eat on surprise. You know, and a lot of people disagree with me on my thoughts on using fluorocarbon and braid and monofilament. I hate fluorocarbon.
What?
Yes, sir.
I don't fish is fluorocarbon.
The sun murders that line. Makes it brittle. You got to change it too much. I can go all season on 40-pound braid and never worry about it. If I get, you know, some of it's getting rough, I'll just cut it off. You know, that's starting to get rough, you know, from banging into rocks and stuff like that. You know, yes, have I lost big fish because of rocks and concrete? Yeah. The braid does not like sharp objects, you know, too much. It'll slice right through it. I mean, I lost like a 7-8 pounder last year. But it was my own fault because I was running a chatterbait on another rod that had 40-pound braid on my casting rod, and I had a spinning rod with me, a little medium light.
Okay.
And I had 20-pound invisibraid on it. I'm like, I ended up breaking off my wacky rig and everything, and I put another one on there and I got it hung up, broke it off, and I'm like, forget it, I ain't whatever. I just carried the rod with me for a while. And I just said, you know what, forget it. I'm going to throw a spinnerbait on there. I threw a spinnerbait on there, and I just fished this one whole area, you know, 100 foot, you know, all the way around me, 180 degrees worth.
Just fan casting. Yeah.
Yeah, just fan casting. And I cast out this first time the spinnerbait over there, and right past there's like an overflow that's made out of concrete on this reservoir. And I cast out there, just past it, reeled right by it. And I got about 2 feet from it, bam. I mean, it just nailed it. Well, that light rod, there was nothing I could do with it. You know, I mean, it was just taking advantage of me. Yeah, I mean, the rod was all just bent over and everything. It's going this way and that way and out this way, you know, and just burning drag. And I'm like, oh man, I'm like nah, I ain't gonna tighten up drag because if I do, he'll bust me off. You know, and I already had it pretty tight, you know, because it's a 20-pound braid on there.
Right.
And next thing I know, it just turned. And when it went off to the side, it got into the out past the concrete, and then it went around the other side of it. Pow. That's all it took.
No. Is that in Ohio?
Yes.
7-8 is about the big they get up here in Ohio. So that's brutal.
Yeah. I mean, I had one. Well, there was 2 of them I found that had died last year in this reservoir. And I mean, I've had people tell me that there's some 9.5 pounders in there.
Okay.
That they've caught and put back in the water.
All right.
But there was one, I think I ended up posting a picture on Facebook and on Instagram last year. It was, you know, a dead bass. And it's, you know, all curled. Its tail's all curled up. Landed on my catch board. Dead, dried out and everything, and all curled. It was like 22.5 inches long, curled up.
Yeah.
So it was probably a 24 plus.
It's a big girl.
Inches long. Yeah, huge. And then I found another one. It was still in the water, you know, but it was kind of eat up pretty bad and smelling pretty funky. So I wasn't grabbing that one, but it was, I mean, its mouth was like that big around.
Jeez.
You know, it was huge. It was even bigger than the other one. You know, if it wouldn't have been all nasty and stinky, I would have pulled it out and threw it on the board, but I wouldn't mess with that. That's too nasty for me.
Gross.
And, but.
Well,
go ahead.
No, going into the fall now.
Going
What's
into
your
the fall.
game look like?
You get in the fall the late summer fall transition. To me, early morning, you know, you got like an hour and a half from just before daylight, you know, maybe like 15, 20 minutes before daylight to like 40, 45 minutes after daylight. You're going to have a good spinnerbait bite, usually. And it just works out. I mean, it's just a fast retrieve, you know, cast it out, you know, try to stay close to structure because they're going to be up there most times still chasing bluegill, crawfish, and stuff like that hadn't, you know, really come out too far. They're right at the edge of it, you know, because a lot of times at night, you know, bluegill, crawfish, they're hanging to structure, you know, because at night, what's your big feeders? Catfish, you know, bass will feed at night, you know, the bigger bass. And when it gets hot like that, you know, that's a good time to catch some, you know, 4+ pounders, you know, just cast out there, you know, a couple feet off a bank, you know, the water depth, I don't think really matters too much if it's a foot deep or if it's 10 foot deep, because the bass are going to be there close and they're just going to be swimming back and forth, you know, and if you sit there and watch long, next thing you know, you'll see a blow up, boom, and they'll smash right into the rocks. And
have you ever,
you know,
have you ever tried to like fish your spinnerbait like a jig?
Yes.
Like deep water, like deep
that's
water.
where I was getting to next.
All right, keep going then. I apologize.
And when that little bite window falls off, you know, you're, like I said, you're getting into the heat of the summer, late summer, just before the, you know, the fall transition. You know, you got the thermals and all that stuff that are getting weird in the water, you know, and that's when bass fishing can get real tough. And but I'll cast out into deep water, you know. Depends on where you're at. You know, if I'm in like some of these little ponds that I fish in, you know, they're 6-7 foot, a lot of them, and I'll cast out there and just let it fall. Just sit there and just let it sink and let it sit there a minute. Don't even get in a hurry, you know. Get on your phone, check, you know, emails or what. I've seen time I'll sit there, you know, checking text messages or something, or texting my wife, you know, let her know, hey, I'm over here fishing, blah, 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 you know. or, looking at a YouTube short or something like that. And next thing I know, there's a tug on my line.
It'll pick that spinnerbait up off of the floor?
Yeah.
You're not doing anything to it. It's just sitting there.
Just sitting there. And usually when I fish them like that, I'll take like this here. I believe this is a black and blue flake Kraken crawl from Guggen.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll use something like that, or maybe even like a bandito bug.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't take it and hook it, like you do this, like that.
For those listening in, like what?
Well, like you would, normal, like how you do it, like a paddle tail, where it's, where it's rigged on the right way.
Yep.
Well, I'll just take it. As for instance, like this here is a Northland or Northern Tackle spinnerbait, black with a orange blade on it. So I'll just take that thing and rig it sideways. You like that?
Okay.
See how that one crawl kind of lays over?
Yeah.
Some people say, "Oh, I cut that off." No, leave it on there, because if you're dropping and letting it lay on the bottom, that spinnerbait is most time going to lay like this.
Yeah, on its side, and you want that crawl. Okay.
Well, they see that crawl and smell that crawl. They'll smash it. They'll just reach down there and pow. That's what I said. You just leave it sitting there, and mess around a minute, and there you go.
Yeah.
And if you don't get a bite, just reel in your slack, kind of just drag it, let it sit there, for another 30 seconds to a minute. Don't get nothing, do it again,
Brutal.
If the bite is a little less aggressive, they might be sitting there eyeballing it, but it's just laying there. They don't want to mess with it. Change up how you, retrieve, just reel up your slack and pop it hard. Just let it just jump up off the bottom, and then do like 3 or 4 handle cranks and let it fall back down. A lot of times when you do that jerk up off the bottom, by the time you get your hand on that reel to start reeling it up, they'll hit it.
Right.
And if they don't, they'll hit it on a fall back down. Because they're like, "Oh, there's something wrong with this crawfish."
I'll put him out of his misery. Yeah. Just careful. Don't be jerking that thing up over your head. So when it hits it, you have no leverage to set the hook.
It's kind of like you got your rod tip down, just kind of bring it up, maybe like shoulder height of your rod tip, and stop there and just start reeling. There, a lot of people overlook a spinnerbait. It is so versatile, and I'll fish them a lot at night, like I said. When it's the dog days of summer, it's hot. You don't want to be out there when it's near 100 degrees and humidity is 90-something%. It's miserable. You're going to spend all day out there and you're going to get miserable. You're going to get mad. You're going to get frustrated. Well, we don't want to. You want to enjoy fishing. You don't want to get mad and frustrated. The whole point of getting out there is to have fun. Clear your mind. Just enjoy the outdoors. So when the dog days, I'll go out in the summertime at night, and if you got a full moon, it's great, because that's going to bring the shad up. And you'll see the shad all over the tops of the water, just big balls of them here and there. If you're lucky enough, they'll move in real close to the bank. If not, well, most of the time they're going to be out of casting distance. They'll be out there 150 feet, and it's like, come on, just come a little closer. So you can get, a spinnerbait out there, and just burn it on top with them. You'll see the shad just start, scattering, Well, that gets a bass's attention. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. What's that scaring them? They're not going to eat my food. I'm here to eat them, not you, and they'll come right up and they'll smash that spinnerbait, and in the moonlight.
How much thought do you put into having a trailer hook?
A trailer hook? feel I have indifferences about it. I do use them.
Okay.
Um,
Some you don't need it because some of the hook they are now designing them where the hooks are super long, right?
Yeah. I mean, like a show by go with this Berkeley. I mean, that thing is huge.
That goes out about as far as a trailer hook would.
Yeah. I mean, I'll grab let me find it here. Oh. I get that little piece of soft plastic over here. You can actually see the hook better. Okay. Here's a KVD, 3/8 ounce.
Yep. Look at that. We have the same one. Literally, we're holding the same one almost. I have a Colorado blade on mine.
Yep. And
which has a pretty short shank hook on it.
I mean, look at that little short hook.
Right.
Okay. Here's a Berkeley, 3/8 ounce. It's a 3/8 ounce. I'm holding the heads right together.
Yep.
See that difference?
Nearly double. 40% longer. Yeah.
Oh yeah, a good 40%. If now like this spinnerbait here, no, I wouldn't use a trailer hook. It's not necessary. Like on this KVD, I'll throw a trailer hook on there. Some people they'll take like the little oxygen tube stuff, or I'll buy that. At Walmart or whatever. You can get like 40, 50 feet of it. Yep.
I like that stuff. Yeah. To keep it on there.
Yep. Get you a good hook, 6 cents. They make a real good trailer hook for spinnerbaits.
Okay.
It's a real stout hook. It's got a little larger eye, so you can get it over there easy. And I'll put it on there. Then I'll take a little 3/16 inch piece of the oxygen tube, put it over the hook, and there you go. And the only bad thing about them, the only reason I will use them when I start getting these short strikes.
Right.
Like where they're just coming up and I have a trailer on there, and the only thing they're grabbing is that trailer, and I'm pulling, and you see the bass come out of the water, and you see your trailer stretched out, and they release it. Of course, then you're mad, like, you son of a gun,
Should have had a trailer hook on. See, I never fish one without a trailer hook. I mean, why? At that point, I'd hate to lose them. So I don't know. I don't fish it too often anyways. So even though I'm holding 6 of them.
The only bad thing about a trailer hook, if you're using a trailer hook, and most of the times when you have a trailer hook on there is when you notice they're short striking. Then you just put that trailer hook on there, and 9 times out of 10, their only hook they're going to have is that trailer hook, and the roof of their mouth or the side of their jaw, maybe in their tongue, which gets them kind of bloody then when you hook them in their tongue.
Yeah.
And then you get one that's not short striking. She just comes up and just slams the whole spinnerbait in their mouth. Then you get into the gills, or it gets down, they get that trailer hook down in their gullet. And then you're playing around trying to keep from killing this fish.
Right.
You're reaching up through there. At the same time, have pliers where I had to reach in there before, and just snip the hook.
Yep.
Because the barbs through two of their gills snip the hook off and just slide it out, and do minimum damage. They're still going to bleed, but you're not ripping it at that point, trying to tear that barb out of there.
Here's something interesting I found. I'm going to bring up the photo. So check this out. This is talking about the shorter wire arm positions roughly half of the rear blade above the hook bend, so there's no need for a trailer hook. And it says the longer wire arm causes the rear blade to bend below the hook. This means that the spinnerbait will need a trailer hook. I thought that was interesting. What do you think about that? As like a rough rule of thumb.
That might be all right. I mean, let's look at this KVD here. Or not the KVD, but the Berkeley. Well, that Berkeley, they're real close to being even.
Right.
Maybe it might be a 1/4 inch past, but.
So that diagram would say, no, you don't need one for that. Right. It's only saying basically if the end of your hook comes to the front of your like willow blade. Basically, if it's short, is what it's saying. But you're using the last blade on your spinnerbait to determine that. I don't know. Oh, that was interesting. I'm just reading about spinnerbaits, and I was like, huh. That is.
I don't know if I trust that analogy or not. Because a lot of times they're short striking. I've even noticed like that one there where it had that spinner blade that stuck way past.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any of those spinnerbaits anymore. I try to stay away from those. So
let's dive into what do you got there in front of you. Let's talk dive in a little bit more with the lures, your favorite types of spinnerbaits, why they're your favorites. Talk a little bit about the weights. When do you pull out different weights? When? Why?
Different weights. Weights is a big thing. I shock a lot of people when I talk about that. The weight of a spinnerbait, I guess it depends on how deep you want to fish it.
Sure.
The heavier spinnerbait is going to run deeper. A half ounce, a quarter ounce to a half ounce spinnerbait, you can run that comfortably between 1 to 4 foot of water. Pretty easy. Once you get past about 4 foot deep, unless you're really going to slow roll it, you need to jump up to a 5/8 or 3/4 ounce.
Okay.
And that'll take you down to about 7 feet. Just cast out and let it sink. Count it down. Count to 7 or 8, 10, whatever. Maybe not even that long. Just I guess it kind of depends on if there's current in the water or if it's just dead calm. Count them down, let them sink, start reeling. Keep your rod tip down low to the water so you're not raising it up too quick. Keep your rod tip down and bring it in medium fast retrieve. And you'll come through that water column, pretty level for the most part, and then it'll start lifting at the end.
Right.
And sometimes you won't get a bite here, and you might get at that lift when it's coming up. Because that bass is thinking, okay, it's getting away from me. I don't want this to happen. So, or maybe the bass aren't quite down that low, but you don't know that. And you get one, and it hits you, and you can see down the water, a couple feet, and you see the bass hit it right there, like 2 foot deep. Then okay, I don't need to run this big of a bait that deep anymore. Go back to quarter ounce, 3/8, half ounce, and do that way. If I'm a slow roll something real deep, say if I'm fishing somewhere where it's got 15, 20 foot of water, I'll jump up to 7/8, 1 ounce, 1.25 ounce spinnerbait.
How many spinnerbaits do you own?
I probably got about 50 wire for just this kind of style.
Right. What else do you have over there? You keep on pulling. For those of you listening, he keeps pulling like baits out from all around him. He's like living in a tackle box right now. What else? Now we talked about the normal spinner baits, right, and the weights and the ones that everyone's probably used to seeing at Walmart.
Yeah, that's your basic spinner baits that most people use for bass.
Right. Do you get a little wild and crazy with any different type of styles of spinner baits out there?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I have one, but I don't know what I did with it. I looked at my spinnerbait box. There's this one. I have a video on my channel. They're made here in Russellvania, Ohio, but it's like a spinnerbait. Basically looks like this, if it doesn't have blades like this. It's just the old A-frame style spinnerbait, and it has this little blade. It's probably about that wide. It's got a couple of little weird bends in it, and when it comes to the water, it just flops.
Oh, like a tail.
Yeah, it's weird. I found them at Walmart on clearance. And I'm like, well, that's a weird looking spinner bait. How's that thing going? I'm sitting there looking like it don't even have a swivel on it. Can't spin. So I debated buying it. Walked around,
You couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't you? You couldn't
What's
stop
that?
thinking about. You couldn't stop thinking about that thing, couldn't you?
Exactly. It got my mind working. Like, what does this thing do? And so I went and bought 3 of them. They had a.
You went from buying none to thinking about it. I'm gonna buy all of them. That's the end result of this.
Well, they had probably 100 of them,
Oh, okay.
but I only bought 3. You know, I think they were like $2 or $3 a piece, something like that. And but they were marked down from like $8.99, I think,
dang.
or $8.96.
Okay.
And so I had one. It had a black head, black skirt. You know, chrome. The little blade on it was chrome that does the little flippy. Then I had I think it was one that was like white with a silver fleck, and I like a lavender, kind of a darker lavender color. And I ended up hanging up that one on a big tree and lost it. It just, the things that, man, the hooks on those things were super sharp and strong.
Okay.
And I mean, I broke 40-pound braid.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it was in there. And
you were
the other one was just a white one. And I ended up catching them on the black one. It was like, man, that thing actually works. You know what I mean? I had them for like a year before I used them.
Okay.
You know, and I was just one day going through, getting ready to go to this one spot, and I seen it laying there. I'm like, let me try this. Opened it up out of the package, tied it on. First cast, I caught a little 1 pounder.
Right.
Second cast, it was like 3/4 pounder. Third cast, like 1 1/4. And I mean, it was just like
the flipper flapper thing.
Yeah.
Where do I pick them up? You probably can't find them anymore.
I'll have to look it up. I can't remember. Like I said, I can't remember the name of them. I thought they were like some kind of Japanese lure until I actually got to researching it after I caught these fish on it. And they're made, like I said, they're made in Rushville, Ohio.
Okay.
Which is down around Bell Fountain area. And I don't know if they're still in business or not. I don't know. I just remember seeing that on the package. I haven't even looked them up. But
I mean, they got a Walmart deal, so you have to have mass production of these things.
Yeah, I mean, they, you know, I would think they did, or hopefully they still do. And but that's one of the weirdest ones I had. There was an old, they called an undulator.
Someone just asked about that. Someone just asked about it. They said, Digworks, Slyfox, do you have or have you tried the undulator spinnerbait?
Yes. I used to have one.
Explain what they are.
I had it up to 2017 when my house burnt. And after I've never seen them since I bought that one. And I bought it at a Kmart that went out of business down in Collierville, Tennessee when I was like 16. You know, and it was the only one they had, and I grabbed it, and the guy that was with me that was big into bass fishing and stuff, he looked at me, he's like, where are you buying that stupid looking thing for? I'm like, why not try it? Oh, that thing ain't gonna catch nothing. And probably a month later, me and him was out on his bass boat on Sardis Lake down in North Mississippi. And he was running, a Strike King spinnerbait, and I grabbed that undulator. I caught like 25 bass to his 4.
Wow. So what's unique about the undulator?
It's got this big blade on it. It's probably like 3 inches long.
Okay.
And what's that stupid like spinnerbait that Ketchco has? That like does weird stuff. It doesn't really spin, but it does like these weird things. I can't remember what they call that thing. They just come out with it a few years ago. But it's got, the blade is like cut into like 4, maybe 5 pieces. And it has these rings in it that holds them together.
Okay.
And it doesn't spin. It just does like this motion through the water.
Huh.
And it works. So.
What were you showing me in the green room? We only had a few moments together, but you were pulling out some weird looking quote unquote spinnerbaits.
Inline spinnerbaits.
Inline. Okay. Show me the inline.
A lot of people overlook them. Like this here.
You don't see a lot of videos of inline spinnerbaits.
No.
That looks like it straight out of 1990s.
Yeah, that is an old Sonic Swing minnow.
It has a name like it came out of the 90s as well.
I mean,
The
you look
Sonic
at it there,
Swing.
man, that thing is beat up. I mean, it's tore up. You know, I caught my biggest bass that I put on the board last year, 21 and a quarter, on this, on my anniversary in July, right at dark.
All right.
And but it's a pretty good lure. I mean, it's kind of like almost like a last tail. Like I said, this one's old. I bought this in 2018.
Okay.
I believe. And I mean, it's held up. I mean, I've caught a couple hundred bass on it, you know, largemouth, spots, and smallies.
I feel like the inline spinner is underrated. You don't hear a lot of people throwing it. You don't see a lot of videos on it.
A lot of reason is because when everybody thinks that, you know, inline spinnerbaits, what are they thinking?
Rooster tail.
Little rooster tails.
Oh yeah.
Look here.
Yep.
Big difference.
And you got a
huge difference.
Yeah, it is.
And yes, these will catch bass
and trout.
You know, no problem. I mean, they work. But Sonic Swing minnow is no longer in business. I can't remember the company that I bought this from, or I'd be trying to see if they had any more.
All right, you got to find them on eBay, folks.
But I deleted the email from when I ordered them. They give me order confirmation when I ordered that one. I like this little bluegill. That's another Sonic Swing minnow.
All right.
You know, that's got like I can't remember the name of that blade.
Interesting.
You know,
interesting.
But you know, that's one of them. This is another bluegill right here. You know, they're like I said, I was showing Darren earlier that you know it looks all right. It's bent. So it just flops around on the wire. The wire won't hold it straight anymore because the wire is just all bent up in it. And then this is another little Sonic Swing minnow. These are great for crappie and you know smallies.
Yeah,
even bluegill and perch.
They keep going smaller on us.
You know, big difference. You know.
All right.
You know, this one probably weighs about 3/8 of an ounce. This one maybe an 1/8. It's not very heavy. You know, I mean, you're running spinning tackle to run it.
Mm-hmm.
These you can't reel them real fast because if you reel them real fast, they just flop through the water.
Got it.
They blow out. You know, they just won't hold. You know, it's meant to be medium to the slow side of medium. But that's not the smallest one yet. Ouch. Get out of my finger.
He's got himself.
Ow, yeah, stuck me right in my finger.
Oh, wow.
That one there's like maybe 1.25 inch body on it.
Yeah.
You know, that one's like, oh my God. It's probably don't even weigh 1/16 of an ounce.
Wow.
It's like weighs nothing. You know.
Big difference. Low Life says MEPS makes a killer inline.
Yep, they do. I did have quite a few of those. All right, here's a MEPS. Right here.
What's that feathered with?
Number 3 blade, French blade on that one.
What's that feathered? What's that feathered with?
Yeah, it's got the squirrel tail on it.
Squirrel tail?
Yes,
MEPS is like known far and wide for the old actual squirrel tail.
Yes, sir.
Can you still sell your squirrel tails to MEPS?
I believe so. I haven't checked with them, but I believe so. I mean, when I was a kid, you know, me and my cousin, we hunted a lot, you know, and we'd go out and about every time we went squirrel hunting, you know, we'd each get a limit that day of 8 apiece. So yeah, that's 16 squirrels. You know?
Okay. What'd you do with them?
We'd skin them puppies out. You know, if I'm thinking you left the bone in the tail, you put some salt on it and then let them, you know, dry for a little, you know, for a few hours, put them in the freezer.
Okay.
And then you get, you know, I think the minimum was like 50 you could send in at a time, I believe.
You sold the MEPS when you were a kid?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're
I
just
sold them
salting
squirrel tails.
salting squirrel tails,
Hey.
throwing them in the freezer.
Yeah, I'd store them in the freezer, salt them puppies up, put them in the freezer.
Well,
You know,
I need to know how much. If anybody is listening in, can you go check, especially on the live? Can you go check and see if Meps is still buying squirrel tails? How much did you sell them for?
I believe the gray squirrels was a nickel a piece.
You born in 1800s? What's a nickel? What are you?
They didn't pay much, but if you had black squirrels or fox squirrels, you got 10 cents a piece. Yes.
Oh my gosh! How much is Meps paying for salted, curated squirrel tails? I need to know. I can't. I'll go on a deep dark rabbit hole looking myself. I need someone else to help me out. A nickel. So
I seen somebody in the chat said something about fire tiger rooster tail right there.
There it is.
That's just the little one. I think that's a 1/16 of an ounce, maybe, or 30 seconds, something like that. It's not very heavy.
I got some questions.
Then I have a 1/4 ounce.
Okay.
Right there. It's white and it's got like on the one side it's got a little bit of like shad color detail in it. So just weird different things, you know. I mean, a lot of people, you know, I mean, I run underspins as well.
Tiny underspin.
You know?
Look at that.
Yeah, that's, believe it or not, it's heavy. It's 3/8 of an ounce.
Okay.
The spinner's not very big. You know, when you want to run some kind of little grub or something like that on there, just add a little flash to it. You know, this one will do it. I'm trying to think who made this one. This might be a Northland tackle. I believe this is a Northland tackle right here.
All right, we got some squirrel comments in here. Illumination said the OG Meps came from France. I did not know that. Beautiful flawed.
I didn't either.
Beautiful flawed warrior coaching said, "I'm going to rob you, Sly." So I keep your lures close.
That's my wife.
When you sleep. Oh, there you go. I love it. BA Bass Angler says, "I break for squirrels." Bucktail says, "Where I work is polluted with fox squirrels. Big dang squirrels." I'm really happy that the conversation went tonight. Squirrel tails. Oh, someone just wrote, 1 second. What was this? A friend of mine sold squirrel tails to Meps. Even at 5 cents a pop, he still made over $100. Yeah, that's a lot of squirrel shooting.
Oh yeah. There was 1 year I got a bunch of my friends and stuff, and friends of my dad that squirrel hunted and everything. I had them save every squirrel tail that they got, you know, to do that. And I think one spring, God, I think I sent in like 1,700 squirrel tails.
Whoa.
Yeah. I forget how much money it was, but it paid for me a bunch of fishing lures and fishing line and, you know, candy and, you know, Pepsi.
Remember a moment of silence for all the dead squirrels that Meps paid for?
Like this here. Here's another little type of underspin bait is a Roadrunner.
Oh, there you go.
Deadly little crappie jig and bluegill jig. I mean, those things are awesome. You know. And those you can jig or do a slow retrieve with them too. And here's another. I didn't even think about this while I was talking about cold water bass fishing. But like this one here, you know, these little tail spins.
Okay.
You know, back in the day, there were Little George was the big company that had them. I had 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce, 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce, 1.25 ounces. And I think they made like 1.5 ounces was their biggest one.
Okay.
And it was like a big chunk of lead, bigger than like a 50-cent piece. And you take that little dude and cast it out there and just pump it up and down.
There it is.
If if you got in a boat or kayak or whatever, or off of a pier that's got, 10, 15 foot of water, cast that thing, let it go to the bottom and just jig it. Keep jigging it up. Once you know where the bottom is, come up a couple feet and just jig it, treat it like people treat ice fishing jigs.
There you go.
That's what they do. They get down there and they jig it, or they'll sit there and just shake it. You can sit there and shake that thing, and that spinner will sit there and you kind of flop around. You get enough rhythm on it, it might even flop all the way around. So it's spinner baits of all types are really underrated.
Yeah, I mean,
the chatterbait come out, that like changed the bladed jig game. Don't get me wrong.
You still got your
that's chatterbaits.
Yeah. Well, I got some questions on spinnerbaits from the audience listening in. I'm going to give you a choose your own adventure. We got 4 questions here. You can choose which one you want to answer. Cooler lid AP. Do you trim the skirts on a spinning bait? Number 2, do you bend the wire for a wider gap between the blade and the hook, or a smaller gap? Number 3, what's your favorite spinnerbait? Number 4, do you swap out the blades on your spinnerbaits for like red ones? Which question do you want to answer there?
I'll go with the bending.
Yeah.
Of the wire.
It's a little hack.
There's a hack to it. You gotta be careful with it though. Because your spinnerbaits still got one. You can see, like, here's one style.
Yeah.
It's that R bend. Okay. You gotta be careful if you bend it down or if you bend it up. If you bend it up, you got a big chance of making your spinnerbait roll.
Okay.
When you're going a medium fast retrieve. But you weaken that R bend.
Sure.
Up here. Because if you use a spinnerbait enough, you're going to catch one, and that, your wire is going to be up here. And you take that thing and you bend it back down, just real slow and easy. You look at it, you're like, kind of work it back and forth sideways to see if it's going to snap on you. And eventually it's going to snap.
Yeah. All the while you're weakening the metal. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had, bass hooked in the mouth, I sit there and watch them, and next thing you know, pow, you got the blades and everything come flying at you, and the bass is gone.
With a half a spinnerbait in your hand.
Yeah. Yeah. All you got left is your blades and a little bit of wire. Because they'll snap, Then you have the ones that are twisted.
Yeah, like I recently got one from, I think it was Guggen, to have them twisted like that.
Guggen don't have one twisted. They have the little rubber piece put on there to help keep them spreading.
Maybe that was it.
It helps, but it's a piece of plastic.
Sure. It'll
end up breaking too, or it'll end up flopping up. You got it on your line. You put it back on, but it's done stretched, and it just keeps coming off. Like I said, with these here, the Northland tackle, or anybody that has the type that has the twist, they twist them up. Like I think the old Jimmy Houston Redman spinnerbaits.
Here's one twisted.
Yeah, they're twisted.
There we go.
These you can manipulate these a little more. Because you're not going to bend it right in here. You're going to end up bending it just down in here.
Right.
Like I said, you open it up to make that gap wider, which can be good for a slower retrieve.
Okay.
But if you get it speeded up, then that spinnerbait's going to flop. It'd be just like if that spinnerbait, if you got one that after you got it bent and it's, like this, coming through the water, it's going to roll on you because you're bent, and you have to retune them. And never use pliers to retune one, because if you scar that wire, with the teeth on a pair of pliers, that's a weak point. Just like if you take a hook, you got to be careful when you use pliers to unhook a fish, because you can put a scar on that hook, and that's a weak point. It can snap there. I used to do it years ago when I was younger,
Sure.
An old man taught me a hack, and which is the same old man back in the 90s, early 90s, that taught me how to wacky rig. I didn't even know what wacky rig was, and but you take the R-bend spinnerbaits, and most of them, I think it's a number 1 split ring.
Okay.
Not the round ones, but the little oblong ones.
Yeah.
I think it's a number 1. Some of them you can get on there real easy. Some of them it's a fight to get it down over the R-bend.
Okay.
And, you just, if it's a fight, just keep playing with it. It'll eventually go on there. I mean, you might have to tweak your spinnerbait a little bit, squeeze on the wire some, but just don't go crazy. Use your hand only and just work until you get it down on there. And that'll prevent it from prying it out. There's a lot of pro fishermen that get their spinnerbaits for free, from their sponsors.
Right.
And they still do that.
Huh.
Well, first off, it's going to make the life of the spinnerbait longer. It's going to keep that from bending out, and breaking. So there you go. It's a cool little hack to use. Sometimes, you get some that are real small that it's going to be too big. It's not going to work. You get into some of the real heavy wire spinnerbaits, most of them are not heavy wire anymore. Maybe 40 thousandths is about as the heaviest you're going to find these days, because a lot of people want that vibration instead of the strength. But to me, I'll take the strength over the vibration.
Okay.
So.
Well, I can't believe we're at an hour 20 talking about spinnerbaits,
really?
and we're still not done. We could probably keep going. So probably have 15 additional questions, but I have a question from Heather Landskren. Her question is, what advice would you give to a beginner who wants to try using spinnerbaits?
Well, you just tie a spinnerbait on. If you know what your main bait fish, forage fish for your bass is, if it's bluegill, try to find something that's a bluegill color, or a natural color, like a crawfish color, something like that. Your green pumpkins, things like that, which is not the easiest to find, because a lot of spinnerbait companies, they don't make like the bluegill colors.
Yeah, they're all light. Why. They're all light and neons. That's all I freaking see.
Majority of them are. I mean, sometimes you have to get into like a small mom and pop tackle shop.
Yeah.
That carry homemade baits.
Yep.
Okay. You take like this Berkeley. What's Berkeley's run? $7 to $10 a piece. It's Berkeley. It's got to be good. Nothing bad about a Berkeley. It's a great spinnerbait. You get into some of these mom and pops bait shops that's got these spinnerbaits up here. It might cost you $12 for this 3/8 ounce spinnerbait. And you go, wow, that's just nuts. Well, I've checked into it. I can't buy the parts to build this spinnerbait for what I can buy this for.
Huh.
I mean, it's got unreal, So that's the reason is, mom and pop shops got those spinnerbaits. They're going to cost you a little more money, but you're going to have a bigger variety of colors. Some of them you might have one person that has, 200 or 300 different spinnerbaits in there. They got 10 different colors. They'll have their own style of sexy shad. They'll have their own style of red crawfish or fire crawl, whatever like that you want to call it. A black and blue, a fire tiger. But then you're going to have something, you're going to end up with something like the color of this skirt here that's on this jackhammer. Or
that's
on
my
this
color. That's what I like right there.
You see that? But you're going to have a spinnerbait that's going to have that color on it. Big name brands do not do this. I don't know why. And I think a lot of it is they just think, well, everybody's going to be, run a spinnerbait. They think, oh, it's going to be a shad.
Right.
Yeah, shad colors work. But, you get into, these different colors, Yeah.
They also eat bluegill, folks. There we go.
Like this one here. Yeah, it's got purple and blue and black. You know, I don't even know who that bait's even made by.
Finish your thoughts on what advice you would give a beginner who wants to try out spinnerbaits for the first time.
But find out what your common food forage for your bass is.
Mm-hmm.
Get some 3/8 half-ounce range. You know, cast it out there. If you know where there's structure in the water, cast out close to that structure. They don't get hung up too bad. Cast it next to that structure and just start reeling. Do you a medium to medium moderate retrieve? Do it over and over. Do fan cast. You know, if you're casting, you know, start out here at 3 o'clock, work your way all the way around, you know, like 2 o'clock and 1 o'clock and 12 o'clock, 11, 10, 9, you know. If you don't get nothing, move down to like 10 feet shy of where you were casting at and start it again and work that back again. Do that back cast that you just brought a spinnerbait this direction. Now you're going to bring that spinnerbait this direction, because that can also trigger a strike, you know, because maybe that bass seen something going that way. Like, I'm not in that big a hurry. If it comes back, I'll hit it. Well, you cast out here and you bring it back. Boom. It's going to hit it. And don't like really get into the crazy colors. You know, run your natural colors. If it's shad, use a shad color. You know, white and silvers, white, silver, black, and gray skirts if you can find them. Maybe something that's like a white and gold. Mm-hmm. If your water is clear, you know, run a willow blade. You know, I wasn't a big fan of willow blades until just a few years ago. You know, I never really caught fish on them. So I didn't fish them much. But I've learned, you know, even as many years I've run a spinnerbait and really care for the willow blade, I learned that there's times that, yes, they're going to work better than that Colorado blade or the Indiana blade. So it's just, you just get out there and use it. You know, it will produce, you know. Biggest thing is what their forage is. I know a lot of people say, well, you know, run an orange spinner blade or a red splinter blade, you know, with a gold or a silver in the springtime because of the crawfish. There's times in the springtime I'll never break out a blade that's not silver or gold.
All right.
You know, it just depends on how they react. If I run, you know, just a silver blade and I don't get nothing, run a silver and gold and get nothing, then I'll break out and, you know, run that, you know, a gold blade with an orange blade or gold with a red blade. So don't be afraid to use different trailers. I mean, here's one that's kind of loud.
That's pretty loud.
It's a methylate. It was just a chartreuse colored skirt, but I put a Zoom methylate colored worm on there, cut it in half, tied it on there. And it's not so much for action. Yes, you get a little action. It's going to vibrate, you know, when that spinnerbait comes through the water, it's going to be sitting there, and, but it's more so just that contrast in color, that something different. Even something like this is black and orange, you know, and this is like an Ascend, I think. Ascend blade. This is one I got from mom and pop shop.
Okay.
My wife probably kill me if she's in here and hear me tell you. I paid $13 for that spinnerbait, but it's a different color. The head on it is black with blue fleck.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see that or not.
I could see it's black. It's hard to see the blue fleck. I kind of see it.
Yeah, but it's got blue fleck mixed in with that black, you know. And the blade on it is like it's not really black. It's like a black chrome blade on it.
A little something different that you don't typically see. Yeah.
It's something different. And I've caught several bass on this. You know, pound and a half, 2 pounds is the biggest ones I've caught on it. You know, no monsters. But, you know, I mean, I've caught.
Oh, your wife did hear you, by the way. She just popped in. You're in trouble, my friend. You are in trouble.
That's all right. I get in trouble all the time. It doesn't matter.
Well, guys, we are way over where typical a lot of time. I can continue to go.
You know what I did talk about?
Oh,
I didn't tell you about my rig.
Oh, yeah. We'll end with that. What's your kayak rig? It's the big rig, right?
Yeah, it's a big rig. I bought it used off of Facebook Marketplace.
Heck yeah.
And before that, earlier in the spring last year, well, about a year ago, Gramps gave me a Pelican Quest, I think it was, when the sit on top, but basically you're still sitting down in it. I took it out a few times, and my back is too old for that thing.
Young
nice
man's
kayak,
game.
and man, I appreciated Gramps giving me that thing. I think the world of the guy, but I couldn't get out of it. I had to roll over to get out of it.
Okay.
So I'm getting soaked, to get out of it, because I couldn't stand up to get out of it. No problem getting in it, but after spending an hour and a half, 2 hours, I couldn't get out.
Okay.
So I was like, man, I can't torture myself like that. And I'd looked on Marketplace and looked, and it was like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 for pre-rigged kayaks with a bunch of stuff on it. And if you found something that didn't have a bunch of stuff on it, it was the same kind of kayak I already had.
Right.
Or it was, 1,500 miles away.
California.
So, no, I wouldn't.
Great deal.
I ended up finding one about an hour and 15 minutes south of me around Sydney, Ohio.
Okay.
And I bought it, and it had, a trailer. Of course, I don't use the trailer, but it had a trailer with it. It come with a Bixby motor.
Oh, nice.
That he just bought brand new in the spring, but his son was getting too big to be on the kayak with him.
Okay.
Because he would take his son out fishing with him on the Miami River there in Sydney, and he was like, "Yeah, it's just getting where it's just too much unstableness with him and his son. He's a bigger guy.
Yeah.
He's probably size of Chad or Fluke. Not saying anything bad about them guys, but he was a big boy, and seeing it on there, got in touch with them, and I had them come down $1,000.
Oh wow! How much are big rigs MSRP?
Well, back then, I think that, and back in 2016, I think they were around like $3,000 or so.
Wow, that's an expensive yak.
Yeah.
Oh, the big rigs now
they have the pedal drive, and they're like $4,000 now.
Yeah, they're $4K for the pedal drives.
Yeah.
The big rigs are $2,800. This is what I'm initially seeing. I'm sure you could find different prices, but okay, that's like.
But it, like I said, it had the Bixby motor on, had trailer, still had the J crate in the back of it, which I found out talking to another big rig guy, and he's like, "Man, that is like the holy grail of the Jackson kayaks. You can't find them."
Okay.
But I have the original water bottle, that goes in and has a little strap. You hold it on the deck. It had all kinds of different rod holder. He catfished out of it.
Okay.
He had all kinds of different attachments and stuff. I don't use half of them because they're just not for me.
Sure.
He's got, one rod holder that, that's got like a 2.5-inch opening, for big catfish rods to go down in there.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty nice. Stable as can be, no leaks, so I love it. It got me out on the water a lot easier. It still has the, I think they call it thermarest or something like that. The little air pillow thing.
Oh yeah, that's for backpacks.
Up with air automatically. You adjust the button, sit down in the yak, and sit there and release it where it's comfortable. Tighten it back up. You're good to go all day. I mean, it's like the perfect lumbar support. So.
Well, there it is.
Very nice.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I had a buddy just texted me who's listening in. He said, "This is the original MEP spinner from France." I don't know if you guys can see that very well. There we go. Oh, gee. It's hard to see with a lot of the glare from my computer screens, but nonetheless.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
There it is. Well, folks, if you haven't done so yet, head over to Slyfox Fishing, not fishing, fishing. And if you liked what you heard tonight, I know that you post content from time to time, and we appreciate
this year I'm going to put more on there.
There you go. It's good. It's going to be 24 is going to be good. And if you haven't done so yet, please hit the like button on this as well. Hope to get a little bit of reach. Next week, we got another great guest. I'm excited about that. And so I'll see you next week at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Charlie, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Hopefully everyone listening in is like, hey, maybe I'll pick up that spinnerbait and throw it, including myself. Maybe.
Just hopefully.
Maybe. I mean, I have enough of them. I should probably throw it out there every once in a while. Thanks, Charlie. You have a good night. Thanks, everyone, for listening in. Grateful for you. See you later.